Welcome to Internet Capital Markets, the weekly show where we explore how financial systems are being rebuilt on the web. Each week, we sit down with the builders, investors, and institutional leaders shaping this transformation, from tokenized assets to decentralized finance, stablecoins, and everything in between. Today's show is brought to you by TrustBytes, smart treasury for Internet Capital Markets. Before we introduce our guest today, I'd like to welcome my co-founder and co-host, Jonas Surman. Hey, Jonas, welcome.
GM, everybody. How is everybody? So, today we have another very exciting guest on the show. And actually, we met her in a German incubation program where TrustBytes was born as well. So, I'm very pleased to welcome Alexandra Overgaag, the CEO and co-founder of Thrill Labs. She is a MC, she's a mentor, she has a background, I believe, in hospitality, if that's correct. And she has a lot of fun stories to tell from her time being a bartender. Alex, welcome.
Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate this wonderful introduction. Really lovely to be here to talk with you about all sorts of things. And looking forward to today's meeting. And indeed, maybe we'll speak about alcohol too. Who knows?
Better not. Maybe after the show. But maybe for anyone out there who's not like super familiar with you and Thrill Labs, can you maybe intro yourself, Thrill Labs, and why networking itself has become like an infrastructure piece or a tool for Web3 itself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm sure that most people are not familiar with me, so that makes total sense. Yeah, so I'm Alex. Feel free to call me Alex. Whenever someone says Alexandra, I kind of like get nervous. That's because that's usually what my mom says when she's angry with me. So Alex is fine. I'm indeed the founder and CEO of Thrill Labs. My background is actually, yes, in the hospitality sector. I worked for many years as a bartender in restaurants, in bars, both in the Netherlands and in Italy. I am Dutch indeed, but live in Italy since approximately 10 years now, where I came to study at some point. Because I studied quite a lot, I have some of the diplomas right here, right? Because it helps credibility, builds credibility. Maybe we will talk about that later on. But I studied quite a bit. I've got a law degree and 2 degrees in political science as well. And I wanted to originally join basically the academic sector as a researcher. That's why I studied for so long. But long story short, in 2017 approximately, I got into contact with crypto, with blockchain, initially as kind of like a retail investor and trader. And as it goes over time, right, I got more and more interested in the technical, but also the ideological underpinnings, basically, of this industry. So I thought, go away, academia, no legal and political institutions anymore, what I was initially planning to do. But I want to work in this cool blockchain space, I decided a couple of years later. So that brings me then to what we're doing at Thrill Labs, I suppose. And I will keep this, as brief as possible. When I started to work in crypto and in blockchain on the business side for a wonderful startup from the UK, a couple of years ago, I really saw that, with fundraising, with going to events, with looking for jobs, even with looking for collaborations, with bringing products to markets and whatnot, that the business industry in our global blockchain or Web3 space is very much replicating certain human aspects, as in any other industry, I think. And what I mean with that is that today it really much, as I'm sure you guys are also familiar with, it very much depends who you are, what you look like, who you know, where you're based, where you go, for whether or not you have chances for success to make it in this industry from a business perspective. And I thought it was kind of like unfair. So that is where the idea then slowly for Thrill Labs came from. There were also some, personal things that happened in that period that really made me realize that I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship. And that is basically, why we are building various Web3 networking and event solutions. Thrilled, our networking app, is indeed one of them. Now, maybe I will keep this as brief as I can, but to the second part of your question, and feel free to interrupt me if this monologue is very long, because you asked about networking, right? And being a social scientist, so you will, from, by nature almost, on indoctrination for so many years, I found it really interesting to look at how Web3 really works in terms of networks and networking. And what I think you guys maybe also know is that there are so many networking theories that are almost like being replicated in our industry, right? So not about networking and protocols, but I mean more of the human layer that is basically keeping this whole global Web3 industry together. And, there are so many examples where, I don't know, even the number of people that like the more you know people and the more people that the more opportunities are opening up, right? So the more nodes you basically know as a person, the more powerful you almost get. And it almost goes for Web3 itself, right? We want more users, we want more builders, and the further we grow and grow. And of course, also how trust is important. I mean, you guys company is called TrustBytes, right? Trust is crucial too, and your social connections and your ties to people and to other companies. And so you can go on and on with all these types of networks and networking theories, how they basically are replicated in Web3. And yeah, a lot can be said about that. We have published a couple of articles about it, but I think networking and having a network is really, really important. That's not always cool, that's not always ideal, but it's the reality, I believe. So yeah, that's core to what we're doing at Road Labs. And end of the rant.
Now, super cool. I love the huge variety of your background. And before we dive into like Thrilled Labs a little bit more, we would like to talk about like a statement that you made in one of your blogs, like I think a couple of years ago, if that's correct, where you claim actually that Web3, although it's claiming to be decentralized and fair for everybody, that it's actually not. And when we are talking about that, like, what do you think is like structurally broken today in how the opportunity capital and the access to like those ecosystems? Like, what is your opinion on that? I hope I stated you correctly there, but yeah, maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit more.
Oh, that's a great question. And oh my God, guys, if you have any opinions about this from your experience, I would love to hear that too. But I think it really depends from which perspective you're looking at it. Are you looking at it more from a capital perspective, more from a technological perspective, more from an opportunity perspective? If I think more about business and how we maybe as industry professionals are all fighting each other, I think that things like warm introductions, reputation, the fact whether or not people like you and therefore want to speak with you and get you involved in a deal, like these things are, in my opinion, kind of like Pareto inefficiencies, right? They're not necessarily the best outcome out there from all the possible outcomes that exist. Maybe also from a funding perspective. Also here, it's so important for investors to kind of like eliminate risk, right? Because 9 out of 10 startups go bankrupt. But still, what that really means is that with that limited capital that is then remaining, you want to be as careful and almost as conservative, not conservative, that's the wrong word, but as careful as possible. So what you do, you want to select the startups, founders that you know, founders that maybe look a little bit like you, maybe founders that talk in the right way, that go to the right places. So all these types of things are kind of like indications from how decentralization, yes, in theory, it's there, in the tech, it's greatly there. But in practice, the decisions that even happen before decentralization is even built, like there are systemic differences there. And what I like to see as inefficiencies there that basically then influence how decentralization is built. And I think even if we look at decentralization, there are so many centralized aspects out there, right? Gatekeepers like Apple, if they want to approve your app, right, in the App Store. On-ramps, exchanges that are bound by regulation, centralized cloud providers that have an outage. So in my opinion, of course, you can give so many examples, but I don't think that Web3 and its outcomes from a builder's perspective is necessarily fair or decentralized. But of course, also that from a later perspective, yes, it's open for everyone. But once again, not everyone has access to phones, maybe has computers, maybe not, the right jobs, the right connections to raise funding, etc. So I think a lot of gatekeeping happens, a lot of structural barriers are there. Once again, it all depends on one's perspective and who you are as a stakeholder. Don't fall asleep, please.
No, we can echo what you just said. It's all about who you know, where you are, and then deals happen often, also sometimes for political reasons, even if we never talk about this. But yeah, in a way, if I compare that similar to, I'm coming from a sports background where everything should be super fair. We have those criteria, but those politics happen in the background, and you have to play certain games to achieve some things. And there are some parallels that are happening here as well in the blockchain space. And yeah, it's good to talk about fairness. And this actually also brings me to the next question, where in internet capital markets, we actually assume open, permissionless access, but in reality, most deals still happen through private networks. Why do you think is that gap so persistent?
Very, very interesting, by the way, that it echoes some of the things that we're seeing in the sports industry. Yes, I would expect that, by the way, but yeah, it's very interesting. I think once again, it showcases that all these industries are kind of like built by humans, right? And that ultimately, specifically in Web3, where we have this strong decentralization and merit-based ethos, that then still gaps persist. And indeed, as you said, it also happens with funding and with private networks. It's basically, I think, the same thing very much here, right? We have trustless systems, but ultimately also for early stage businesses, so much relies on reputation, on signaling, on social proof. I just posted on LinkedIn earlier this week about some investors that have been kind of like suggesting that we put, let's say, big logos on our pitch deck, right? That showcases our team's legitimacy almost. So the universities that we're studied at or the big companies that we worked for. But I think that's such a crappy type of assessment. I mean, if you can showcase it, fine. But let's not forget that so many people, they don't come from the big companies. They are not ex-Google. They haven't worked for Deloitte or other types of consultancy firms. There are so many, self-taught people or people that come from entirely different sectors. And I think a focus on that, even if it's just a partial focus, because of course, also for investors, other types of matters are important, right? With regards to your company, it's an entirety of factors that need to be taken into consideration. But anyway, the whole focus on signaling proof and then assessing proof, of course, it makes that you're going to look in your inner circles, like which projects have already been vetted by your friend that works for another VC firm. And they think that this particular project is really great. So, okay, you already know that person has the due diligence. So yes, I'm happy to join the round 2, right? So all these types of things are important. I would finally add as well, because of course a lot can be said, but also the narratives that we're seeing that are strong, right? In the media or provided by big firms such as E015. What do they think is hot in a particular year? What do they think is kind of like not that interesting? Like all these research reports that are being shared, the key opinion leaders that make their appointments, that make their statements about specific companies or narratives that they think is hot. Like a lot of that is obviously driven by money and by inner circles and by people making, kind of like arrangements, to limiting or to bigger or to smaller extent. Then we don't even speak yet about tokens and whatnot. But yeah, tokens, of course, are a bit more tricky these days to successfully launch and raise capital for. But yeah, anyway, what I suppose the last thing I will add here is that, like, we have all been in this industry since some time. And we've seen a lot of things changing, but still, like Web3 globally is kind of like an early stage ecosystem, right? Specifically, if we compare it to our ambition. So I suppose that's still there. It's normal that there is some inequality and almost like a winner or a group of winners takes it all mentality. I think that's kind of like inherent to the early stage scenario that we're in. Hopefully it will democratize further over time. Yeah, serious answer.
Democratization, we need some kind of fairness, and actually your company Thrilled positions itself as a fair Web3 networking app. What does fairness actually mean in the context of capital formation and deal discovery, and how are you achieving this with a fair playground? How you are establishing that?
It's hard. It is really hard, even from, and I love this question, like sincere, like what is fair even? Is fair outcomes? In my opinion, not necessarily. I'm not a communist. I am a capitalist, but I do at the same time think that true capitalism should ideally provide for almost like fair opportunities for people, fair access to opportunity and to growth. So how that basically echoes in what we've built at Thrilled Labs and what we're also trying to do as a company is that I think fairness in Web3 and with networking and capital formation really means fair chances to be discovered as an individual or as a company, and fair chances to connect with the right people that you're looking for, with those who matter for your purpose or your goal, be that, you know, finding a new job or raising capital, really accessing the people that you need to look for. And that goes from both positions, like the person that is maybe slightly less optimized on the level playing field, but also those who are extremely fortunate on the level playing field. Usually what we see with very popular companies and people, right, where the money is and where the power is, that they, on the other hand, are overwhelmed with opportunity and their emails are full every day. And when they're at an event, everyone is chasing them, right? So also there is room for making things a bit more easy, I would say, for them, more efficient. So yeah, anyway, long story short, I think that it's always hard to create a level playing field through tech because it's like when you launch Tinder, right? When they launched Tinder like many years ago, Thrilled is almost like a little bit similar to Tinder. Like they had a hard time onboarding the very, very pretty women, because they knew that once the pretty women were on board, that the rest of the user base would come, right? We have that on Thrilled a little bit as well. Like we know that in order for the networking app to become very, very big and to attract many, many people, you need also a fair share of very powerful people, and not everyone is always inclined or willing to do that. I would say that there are solutions for that. Maybe we'll come to that later in terms of what we're doing. I would like to finally add that with our company, it's not that we only try to create fair opportunities through this networking app that is, by the way, free and open access, but also through the other things that we're doing. We have a traineeship that is open for students from all over the world. Specifically, we have a lot of Asian students joining us. We have a female community that we're trying to expand, of female professionals that are building in this industry. We provide educational resources. We partner with a lot of events and then give tickets for free on a fair kind of like basis. So I try to kind of like incorporate that through our entire company, this kind of like idea of creating opportunity on a fair kind of way. Of course, absolute fairness is never possible. Yeah, a lot can be said about the philosophers and the political philosophers, and, you know, Rawls and stuff about the share of ignorance, or how it was called, the cloak of ignorance, that you never would know where you end up in life. So therefore, everyone wants a fair position. I don't believe in that, but yeah, creating fair opportunity is important.
Yeah, I think I can 100% agree on that. We really need to work on like providing the same opportunities globally for everyone, right? So I think that's a very, very high goal here. And I do like your approach that you not only think about like the app or like the tool or the tech that you build, but also like building kind of like your own ecosystem here, right? And a little bit like growth hacking here, to power Swild Labs. So I do really like that. But talking about like events, and I think you also have a feature which actually uses on-chain capabilities with like blockchain powered ticketing. Why do you think, like in our age, and especially like in our remote ecosystem, blockchain ecosystems, why do you think like that in real life events are like still like super important for our entire industry, and especially because we are talking about it on-chain capital markets?
Yeah, so by the way, I would like to add that I think that giving fair opportunity to everyone is not only in everyone's, like that person's interest, but also in the interest of everyone as a whole, right? Because ultimately we want to take over the world as a Web3 industry. So it's great if the right people have access to the right resources, because it means that we can grow faster and more efficiently. So I think it's not only in our own, in those people's interests that are maybe slightly less well off, but actually in the interest of everyone. So that makes it capitalist per se, in my opinion. So to answer then your question, yes, we are building actually right now a Web3 based ticketing and event management application. It will be also with a lot of blockchain and crypto enabled features. It's not yet live. We're currently lining up some people to start with the beta testing in Q1. To your question, your question was, if I'm not mistaken, like why are events still quite important, right? Or have I misunderstood?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot can be said. I think partially events, going to a lot of events almost once or twice a month, a lot of events are very commercial, are almost like showcases of grandeurism and commercial capabilities, which is great, I believe. Like ultimately, we need to be visible as an industry, specifically one that lives so much in tech, right? Remote. Ultimately, when those people are coming together, stuff is getting done. Yes, from a marketing perspective, the pictures are being taken and I'm happy to attend, or I'm happy to speak at this and this event, like we leverage the crap out of it. Yes, I get that. But ultimately, deals are being closed, people find each other, etc. Now, what I do think is a little bit problematic, like a lot can be said about events. I'm sure you guys know that, going to events probably yourself, but maybe one of the things that I like a little bit less is the fact that ultimately they're also quite often in the big cities, right? In Amsterdam, in Berlin, in London, in New York. Yes, there's also events in other parts of the world, but they tend to be highly centralized. So that makes it not accessible. High ticketing prices is a thing. The fact that sponsors always get the speaker positions is a thing. So that also all creates kind of like, once again, some inefficiencies and some unequal opportunity and unequal access. And we're also trying to change that through the various products that we're building, make this event space also a little bit more fair and accessible, but also commercially interesting for us and our investors and shareholders.
Yeah, I think we already like noticed by now that like, and it actually accelerates with like now all the big institutions coming into the industry. And like if we are looking, for example, at RWAs, we essentially replicate the old system here, right? Or like with many products and tokens here. Many RWA tokens are just like accessible for like accredited investors, for example. And it's like the opposite from a decentralized and permissionless system. And there are many examples. And when we are now looking at the social standpoint here, and you touched on that, right? Part of it, or part of the issue here is, for example, that events are like in those big cities where not everyone is able to go. And on the one hand side, we pray for like permissionless, open, decentralized systems, but how do we achieve that? Do you have like any idea to even foster that movement here and to make it really open and permissionless to anyone? Because like I think we agree here on that there are still like massive gatekeepers, like you mentioned earlier, right? And somehow we just replicate the old system into the new world.
That's an excellent question, I believe. I do think, honestly, that it also depends a bit on our perspective, right? We are thinking a lot right now about, indeed, like, okay, Bitcoin is retracing. We see some, issues with funding of startups and whatnot, but still, there are like DAOs out there. There is a decentralized physical infrastructure. There are, more and more blockchain applications that are being connected to other types of emerging technologies, startups that are building real world impact. So not only real world assets and tokenization, but really impact projects as well. So I do think, and I hope, honestly, that over time, the Web3 space becomes slightly less aimed at commercial and financial applications, which of course has developed very understandably through DeFi and meme coins and other types of extractive practices. Because as you said, ultimately, a lot of what we're building replicates society. That is normal because it's largely the same people that are building right now the tech, that have been building the tech, and that have been building the financial institutions, and that have been making political and economical decisions. So I do think that over time we will see other types of applications too that hopefully are a bit more inclusive. Now, to speak about events, I think, of course, a lot of the things that event organizers can do is make their events a bit more accessible, encouraging more diversity. Yes, okay, here's the diversity card. I know some people will cringe about that, but listen, I don't think people should be put on a stage just because they're different or underrepresented. But there's great people out there with a lot of knowledge that maybe don't work necessarily for a big company that pays for a speaker slot, that deserve on stage. And there is great events out there who really select people based on merit and not necessarily based upon whether or not you're a sponsor. There's a lot that event organizers can do, in my opinion, including giving away some tickets from time to time. And let's be honest, the events industry is overly saturated right now. In my opinion, there are way too many events and conferences for the amount of interest and people and sponsor money that is involved. So ultimately, event organizers do want more bodies, okay, at event venues, because that's great for sponsors and for activations. So in my opinion, quite often they should also lower ticketing prices, and they do currently. And a lot can be said about that.
Yeah, it has become like the events are kind of marketing moments, and investors also expect that you allocate certain budgets to marketing to do such events. If we look ahead, like, do you think they could evolve into actual economic coordination layers for internet capital markets? Is there a chance?
Yes, I mean, yeah, of course. I think a lot is already happening. Like, deals are being made. People do meet each other, and foundations for trust are being built. Like, I believe that you guys are from Germany, right? Both, like, originally. Like, and we met years ago in this German incubator where we were in, like, from the Blockchain Founders Group. I think it was actually Professor Philip Sandner, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago, but he was really a great example for me, and I learned a lot through his lectures, both from a business perspective and blockchain perspective. And he actually said, usually you need like three inhuman touch points, right, to build trust and then to close deals. And I honestly think that he was really correct there. Like, I see that, like, you need to go to events, build trust, right? Build a human relationship, maybe go out for a drink. If you drink, I don't, but have fun with people, right? Make sure that people see you're legitimate. Anyway, it already happens, I think, at events. What I would maybe also add here, honestly, something that has been bothering me a little bit, and I've written about this in the past, is the people that are on stage. I think that some of them can be a little bit more aware. They should be more aware of the words that they use. Something that bothers me a lot, and I'm emceeing a lot of events, okay? So I see all the talks because I announce everyone. And I can't really say much about this when I'm on stage because that's then not my role. I sometimes joke about it. But a lot of men speak about founders in the he form, okay? Or about, hey guys, let's do this and this. And like the whole day long, like I see the females in the audience, right? And they can come to me and they say, oh, it's so cool, you're a female building. Like, come on. Also this whole female male thing, like I get it, but be a bit more aware that like there's more people building in this industry beyond men per se. I love guys, don't get me wrong. Like I love men, great gender, but still what you say on stage matters, specifically for young people in the audience, because those are students quite often, those are young people, and they need to know that anything is possible, really. Now finally, a last thing that I would add here to this endless rant is another thing. I think why sometimes maybe not enough rate on return is happening at events is because there are so many like distractions there, side events, parties, alcohol and whatnot. Like I get it. I used to be a bartender for 10 years. I've drank more in my life than most people will ever do in 5 lifetimes. I've had my share of fun, but still, like at events, I do quite see often some fatigue with people that are tired. They're hopping from event to event to event each week. So maybe it could also be an idea to kind of like differentiate which people you're sending where, so that the rate on return from a company perspective gets enlarged. So yeah, end of my morning here.
Yeah, fully agree with you that what is being said on stage should be coordinated a little bit better. And in a way, we are kind of role models also now in this podcast. It's kind of a stage as well. And yeah, let's switch gears a little bit. We move on to quickfire. So I will ask you one question and you have one word each to answer. Are you ready?
I hope so.
Good, let's go. So the most overrated word in Web3 today?
Synergies.
The most underestimated skill for founders?
Humor.
The biggest lie we tell ourselves about decentralization?
Salvation.
Online networking or in-person events?
In person.
One thing Web3 should learn from Silicon Valley?
Learn efficiencies.
Nice. One sentence now. How will internet capital markets look by 2030?
I hope, at least I hope, that they will be, yes, globally accessible, open to everyone, smart as well, maybe smarter than they are today. I also hope that they will be very much coordinated through on-chain infrastructure, but still at the same time, there is agency for humans that are creating all these infrastructure layers. And the human networks, also the ones that we just discussed, are hopefully still important, but maybe more fair. Also, I think that there will be still also a lot of AI coming into the focus. We haven't really discussed that yet. I used to be an AI researcher, or I wanted to become before joining this industry, but that's an entirely different topic. So anyway, hopefully a lot more open, global, accessible, efficient, but human as well. And yeah, just doing good as well. I hope that for the planet and for individuals. Yes, that's what I hope.
Super. Alex, that was fun. I really liked your clear opinions on the matters and the answers that we ask. And yeah, like maybe before we wrap it up here, where can people learn more about Swild Labs? Where can they find you? And one important question that we always ask in the end: who should we talk to next?
Yes, great. Well, where can they find me? Obviously, on Thrill, our networking app, usually the first one that people see after onboarding. So if you're there, swipe right. That would be much appreciated. But I'm also on LinkedIn in case. I love LinkedIn as well. So feel free to reach out if there's anything that you want to collaborate on, or we can do, or even just for a nice chat. That's also perfectly fine. In terms of who to reach out to, I think that it would be great if I maybe put a call to action actually in our female group with female builders. And then maybe a woman, an epic female builder or investor, whoever she is, maybe they can contact you. Like, I think that can be a great idea.
Super. No, maybe like one last note on that. In the last couple of shows, and I just realized that yesterday, after the show with Anisha from Blocktopus, we had great female builders on the show so far. We had like Clarice from DFNS. We had Ambre from Kaiko. Yesterday, Anisha, today you. I think like the female builders in the space, they really deserve to be heard because they're now getting like more and more. And actually that's like quite refreshing for the entire industry. So really cool here.
Yeah, and thank you guys for doing that. It's really important, in my opinion. And not that we have to thank you per se for selecting us, but it's amazing that you are so thoughtful and actually are doing this actively because it's needed. And there's great people out there, both females and women and men, whoever, however you identify. But I really admire that you're doing that, and it's much appreciated. Thank you for being so open and fair.
There are, and they should be heard, definitely. And really looking forward to the CTA on Thrilled. We will use that for sure. And thank you so much. That wraps up this week's episode of Internet Capital Market. A huge thank you to Alex for joining us and sharing her insights about the human layer that is so essential. If you enjoyed today's discussion, make sure to subscribe, rate, and share the show. It helps us to bring more conversations with the people shaping the future of on-chain finance. This is Internet Capital Markets. Please join us next week. Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and keep building the future of finance. Bye-bye.